Hi, I'm Beth Guyton with Interactive Quality. I'm proud to be partnering with Readiness Associates to bring this presentation to the American Institute of Healthcare Compliance members. Thanks for joining me. We're going to talk about building and supporting personal resiliency. And for this session, we have two learning objectives. The first is just for you to identify two strategies that you can put in place to build your personal resiliency resources, and then to identify two strategies you could use with your staff or team members to help support them in building their resiliency resources. Let's get started. You might remember that resiliency is simply the ability to bounce back from adversity. And when we're resilient, we are able to interact with our environment no matter what stressors are thrown at us in a way that's optimistic and adaptive, with a focus on purpose, human connection, and personal growth. Now, Ann Matson, who's an author who's written quite a bit about resilience, calls it ordinary magic. And when you think about it, resiliency is really an extraordinary ability for human beings to absorb and adapt to the most severe adversity or stressful circumstances, even traumatic events. Yet, this human ability is within all of us. It's ordinary, even though it's magical. And so she calls it ordinary magic. And I think that's a great way to think about resiliency and to be encouraged that each and every one of us can build our resiliency. So remember, resiliency is a multidimensional process, and we can build resiliency on three different levels: a personal level, a team and social level, and then an organizational level. And I mentioned that it is a process. So what we need to understand about resiliency is we're just kind of going about our business, and then something, an external event occurs that causes us a hardship, and we are forced to kind of alter our approach to things because the status quo isn't going on anymore. And the first step is that we just have to absorb or accept this event and really its impact. And that can take some time. It doesn't happen instantaneously. But as we're moving through that absorption and acceptance, transformation has to occur, and it really has to occur on the individual level. So some of the things that may be going on as we are moving through this transition is redefining our values and our priorities, um, altering the way we understand and see things, our perspective. We may reassess what's a realistic expectation now, or what are our goals. We may adjust our approach, and we make sense of things. And we do that in a way by reframing or reappraisal and putting things in a light where we can see the positive in them. We can connect them to what is meaningful and purposeful to us in our lives, connected to our values. So all that's going on as we move through this transformation. And it's through this struggle to absorb and to reframe and to change our approach and to make sense of things that we grow. And remember, the only place we grow is outside of our comfort zone. So that growth is the wonderful byproduct of the stress and the struggle that is brought on us. You know, we didn't ask for it, but it happens. And then that's when resiliency emerges. There's another important aspect of resiliency that I call time bending, but it's really important to understand, to be resilient, an individual has to be firmly grounded in the present. They can't be ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. But at the same time, they need to be able to bend time to a certain extent so that they can reach into their past and gain learning and wisdom from other experiences or other hardships or other successes, and bring that into the present, as well as continuously or simultaneously hold hope for the future. So there has to be grounding in the present, drawing on the past to gain the wisdom that you can harvest up, and then holding optimism for the future. That's critical to resiliency. And so this time bending is another concept, but really critical to that process of resiliency. And you may also remember from our previous presentations, if we look at this complex process of building personal resiliency, and we want to kind of organize it in a way that's easy for us to get our arms wrapped around, we can think about four broad categories or areas where we can build resiliency. The first being positivity, holding that optimism, curiosity, a growth or learning mindset, and of course, practicing gratitude, connecting to meaning and purpose. So just being clear on our personal values, understanding that we need to be intentional with our choices and our behaviors, and our goal direction. And we find that gratitude really helps us see the broader picture and add meaning and purpose to our hardships. Human connection is very important. So the better that we have self-efficacy and self-management, we're able to connect with others. And there are technical skills too, just like, are we effective communicators? Are we a good active listener? Can we express empathy to others? And then self-empowerment, which has to do with our self-knowledge, our self-awareness, our emotional intelligence, our self-management. All those things come together for us to be able to build our competency and feel good about our ability to tackle these tough things and move through them as we transform to adjust to changes that have been brought about to us. So let's start talking about some of the ways that we can build personal resiliency. So gratitude has been demonstrated in many studies to be able to bring about lots of productive, positive emotions. And we know that people who experience more positive emotions are going to be more resilient and be able to get through tough times. So gratitude journaling is very powerful. And again, there have been studies on this. What's interesting is that it seems like doing this weekly may be a little more beneficial than daily, but either way, it's going to be a plus. So that's definitely an activity that you can partake in and encourage those around you to partake in. And then there's general journaling. And if you think about what we talked about with this resiliency process and the absorption, the sense making, the transformation, you can see how journaling can really help you think through those things. And these are just some questions that can prompt you as you're journaling to put things in order and to be able to leave the difficult things behind and move towards the positive, the reframing, the reappraisal in a more positive light. So just some questions. What was the most difficult thing you experienced today? And then to kind of balance that out, name 3 good things that happened today or about today. And then with a focus on extending compassion to yourself, look through the lens of kindness and say, hey, what did I do well today? What am I most proud of? And who did this impact? And you could even consider how it might have impacted them, and even add a prompt. If they were to write me a thank you note, what might they say in that note? So you can begin to see how your efforts, your hard work is really having a positive impact on others. And that helps with that human connection, as well as adding meaning and purpose. And of course, you can see how that drives positivity as well as self-efficacy, because we begin to see that we are effective, we are making a difference. And then I'm going to share a little bit about mindfulness, specifically mindfulness meditations, because mindfulness has been demonstrated to make lots of positive changes and really set us up for success with resilience. But before I go to those slides, I just want to mention 3 specific types of mindfulness meditations, that being self-compassion. And that's considered a loving kindness type of meditation. And that has been demonstrated to really bring about a lot of positive emotion and to help with human connection. So we can see that that has a direct impact on building those resiliency resources, self-empowerment, and then a meditation to transition from the workday to home. And as a resource, we've recorded one of each of those types of meditations, and that will be on your links through the AIHC website to be able to access. So self-compassion, self-empowerment in a transition from work to home. So let's talk a minute about mindfulness. It seems so simple, yet it's kind of a complex topic, but when we're mindful, we are fully present in the moment. And remember the time bending, that's critical for resiliency. And we're aware of what we're experiencing. We're almost able to see all that as an observer. And we do so noticing without reacting or interacting or judging, but instead we hold that curious, open, and accepting mindset. So again, that positivity is really key here to our experiences, no matter how powerful they are, no matter how negative the implications may be or undesirable those experiences are, we're able to almost pull away from them and look at them from an observer's perspective, not having all the emotional attachment we normally would if we weren't practicing mindfulness and weren't kind of training our brain to do that. And so there are a lot of studies out there showing from a neurological standpoint as well as a psychological and behavioral standpoint that there's four big benefits to mindfulness or improvement. So we see attention regulation. We see people who practice mindfulness having more focus. They have better working memory, and they just are able to enhance their cognitive performance. There's also an improvement in body awareness. And interestingly enough, the parts of the brain that this affects also increase our capacity for social cognition and to be able to express empathy and connect with others. So that's really powerful. Emotional regulation as well. And so we know that as we're moving through the process of resiliency, it's really important that we can reappraise or reframe situations and see them from a different perspective in a more positive light. And that's what mindfulness really helps us to do. So we see that particular piece of emotional regulation. And another piece that's been studied from a neuroscience perspective is the ability to stop kind of having bad behavior that like we've just learned to react negatively to a specific stimuli. So what ends up happening as we work with mindful meditation, we begin to train our brain to not have that same negative reaction. So something that might have quote unquote triggered us in a negative way before, we're able to step back from that, look at it as a more neutral observer and not have that same negative reaction, which typically results in stress and anxiety. And you see, physiological changes on with people who practice mindfulness, meaning that they have, they don't have the elevated heart rate or blood pressure or as much of a cortisol release. So we know we can see from a neurological standpoint that there are changes in the brain, but we also see physiological changes that are positive too through this emotional regulation. And then perspective of self. So we're almost able to decentralize. And the easiest way to say it is through mindfulness, again, we're able to kind of rise above things and take an observer's perspective. So we're not quite as involved in what's going on. And that's really important because that, again, helps us to be able to take it on a different perspective, to see a broader perspective, and to be able to understand things in a different way, which brings to light, more creative solutions, more level-headed approach to problem solving, which can be really advantageous. So those are some important aspects of mindfulness and things that they can improve that we know from scientific study. Some benefits with mindfulness also through studies is just understanding that, in the moment when you're meditating, you're going to be calmer. That's a state effect. So in that present state, you're calmer, but we also see the trait effects, which I've talked a lot about in the previous slide, where we see actual changes in our brain. So there's shifts in concentration of gray matter to help us to be less emotionally reactionary and kind of more operating from our executive function centers in the brain to be a little bit more level-headed and logical. We see decreases in stress and anxiety, increases in positive emotion, and mindfulness has been tied to well-being. We have improved focus and working memory, decreased reactivity and improved mental agility and adaptability to stressful situations. Creativity has been shown to be boosted, enhanced self-awareness and emotional regulation, and an increased ability to show empathy and to connect with others is important too. So now shifting away from talking about mindfulness, but talking about how you can build resources with your team. So think about your morning huddles, and I know you've already got a lot of things happening in those agendas. but orienting people to this simple kind of color-coded check-in, with yellow being, hey, I'm feeling pretty good today, orange, I'm okay, and the purple kind of like, not your best day. You can do a very quick check with your staff at morning huddle. Just, can you raise your hand if you're feeling yellow today? Let me know if you're feeling orange, and what about purple? And then you as a leader can get a sense, oh my gosh, this might be kind of a purple day, or you might be like, we're doing pretty good. 80% of my people are feeling yellow today. But what you can also do is ask people who are feeling stronger to kind of buddy up and check in on those staff members that are kind of feeling purple that day. And in that way, you're setting the stage for them to have some support during the day. And you're also driving a bit of emotional awareness. So as they begin their shift, they're kind of taking a check as to, well, this is where I am. And it helps them hopefully to ask for the resources they need, the support that they need, and to move from, purple to orange to yellow, or from orange to yellow. So just an idea as to how you can provide some support in very little time in the morning huddle that's probably already set up. Another great idea is to, whatever break room or break area that you have, to make it really feel like a separate space than the floor, or the work area. So one thing that you can do is work with your staff members to come up with a playlist of kind of upbeat, happy songs that everybody can buy into, and then have that playing on a loop in that break room. So when people are able to take a break, their spirits are kind of getting lifted. Another idea, and you can switch things up, maybe do the happy playlist, you know, during lunch, and then the kind of spa feeling other times. But you can create an atmosphere in there with more mellow, relaxing music. You can even have diffusers to put some soft aromatherapy scents into the air, and using, battery operated candles. So there's no real flame, having the candles in there. So it does feel like they're going into a little bit more of a sacred space, and able to just transition as they take their break. Another great thing to put up in the break room, and I know most people have boards where they're got cards and thank yous from patients or family members, but considering just having some space where team members can write kind of a thank you note or a message of gratitude to one another. And really encourage them to do that. And if you connect this with, the idea of yellow, orange, and purple check-ins, it might be a real easy way for people to say, Susan's feeling a little purple today. Yesterday, she made my day. She got me through my shift. I'm going to write her a little note and thank her. And so in this way, you're just kind of facilitating that. And what we know is, when people, and I'm a big fan of this on a personal level, when I sit down and write a note to someone expressing gratitude, it really fills my cup up. And I know they are so happy when it arrives in the mail to them. So it's really a win-win that we're setting up with that type of situation. Another idea, and I'm a fan of, definitely rounding sometime in the afternoon, or even doing a stand-up huddle towards the end of the shift. It doesn't have to be long. I know it's always a lot happening at that time, but or even just at 5 o'clock or 5:30 if your shifts change at 7, to just for the leader to be present and to express gratitude. So just like at the end of or in the afternoon, you might have a cup of coffee to boost your spirits. Think about having a cup of gratitude to give you a little extra energy as well. So that could be the leader round, a cup of gratitude, or you could set it up as a win huddle or a what's gone right today type of huddle. But it's good to acknowledge just one challenge, let people verbalize that, and just release it. And then try to encourage the group to name 3 things that really went well so far that day. And then that's a great time for you to recognize and show appreciation to your staff. I can tell you, I have never worked in an organization where I haven't come across a person that really appreciates being valued and appreciated, whether they're the CEO of the organization or a frontline coworker. Everyone needs that sense of, hey, I'm valued and I'm appreciated. There's never too much of that. So that's a great time as a leader to really thank the staff. And anytime you're praising like that, be specific. Tell them specifically what they did that was so meaningful. And if you can describe how it had an impact, that's even better. People will appreciate that. And what you'll see is they'll repeat that great behavior. Um, Also get a sense, where people are. They may be speaking about things in a really negative light. As a leader, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of role model reframing things in a more positive light and helping them make sense out of things in a way that you can connect back to that purpose and meaning. So again, you can see you're driving positivity, you're driving human connection, you're driving meaning and purpose. And by praising them, you're also helping them see that they do have self-efficacy, they can make a difference, and that can be very empowering to individuals. Um, Another thing is to listen. So you can, actively listen, especially if you did your color check-in in the morning and it's kind of a purple day on your unit. What you may want to do as a leader is, just not wait till the afternoon huddle if you've got something set up, but just go by and ask questions, be present and really listen. These are some great questions. And again, we're going to try to center everything in the present. We're working that time bending moment. So what's your biggest challenge right now? What's the most important thing for me to understand? And just listen when they share that. And then what's the one thing I can do for you right now? Again, with that present moment focus. I kind of spoke to my personal practice of writing thank you notes, but I would really encourage you, even though it seems like a little investment of time, don't worry about your penmanship, don't worry about everything being perfect. You will find if you can just make a few minutes each day to do this, it will fill your cup up as much as the person receiving that thank you note. So I really encourage that. It's a win-win situation. And also, I think as a leader to be able to share your stories in a way that is humbling, but also kind of sets the example. So feel bad about sharing something that wasn't perfect that you did, as long as in the end you're imparting a really great lesson and role modeling the behavior that you would like to see in your staff. So think about how you maybe can share stories of how it helped you to intentionally reframe a struggle, a challenge, something you didn't anticipate that at first seemed incredibly negative, and you were able to think about it and repackage it in a more positive light. And hopefully in doing that, you can help teach them how to do that more as a routine, because that's a huge piece of us being able to drive our personal resiliency resources. And again, that's a win-win, because as you reflect to be able to tell that story effectively, you're going to reinforce, what a great job you did with reframing and build your self-efficacy and your positivity and your personal resiliency skills. Another powerful thing is, you may remember from one of the previous presentations, we talked about how we're always coming from a place of strength when we stay in our circle of control. The minute we start to put a lot of energy and thought into things that we can have absolutely no impact on, we're going to feel anxious, stressed out, fearful, and really overwhelmed. So as a leader, look for opportunities to coach to this simple concept that when we operate or we work in our circle of control, in our circle of influence, we feel stronger, we feel more empowered, we're able to get more done. And these are just some ideas of questions that you could ask as you're listening. Maybe someone brings up something that is a real problem, but they're focusing more on what's out of their control, which typically means they're sitting back, kind of being a critic, being a complainer, being a judge, rather than trying to challenge themselves to be in a power place to see what they can do. So some powerful questions from a leader. How could we solve this problem? Is there action that we can take now to make this better? And sometimes that action may simply be, let's see if we can look at this from a different perspective. Since that's out of our control, Since that's out of our control, can we shift our perspective to lessen the negative impact on us right now? So you can bring that up and get them thinking about that and help them learn how to do that. And then whenever your staff members are really shifting, working, operating within their circle of control and their circle of influence, thinking creatively about what they can do to have a positive impact, notice that and praise that and really encourage that behavior. So now let's shift and talk about building resources on the organizational level. We all know that during this pandemic, we've been advised to not watch the news, because that can just increase our anxiety and our stress over it. Well, think about this. Can the organization, on an organizational level, put out daily good news? So it could be simple. It could be in an overhead, announcement. It could be via an email or on their intranet, but just push out, several wonderful things that happened during the course of that day and call out specific team members that were able to drive that good thing. So create that good news. Again, that's a great way to be optimistic, to connect back to purpose and meaning in the work, to build people's sense of self-efficacy, and really to connect people to one another because they get to know people on a different level. Oh, I didn't know Jane had done that or Tom had done that. Wow, that's really cool. And then organizations really need to support leaders and staff with sacred time. Make sure that there are breaks during the day for both the frontline staff and leaders. And how you do that is going to be unique to each organization. Part of it is going to need to be investigating what's going to work, what's really needed, and what's feasible for the organization. And then ensure that nobody's working schedules with these crazy back-to-back shifts. Everyone needs a break. There's nothing worse for burnout than to not have time off. During this crazy time, a lot of people have had to bring in, temporary or agency help to make this happen. It is well worth the investment. If you remember to our first presentation looking at the cost of burnout, it's astronomical. And if you can take good care of your people and keep them there through this tough time, it's going to be a lot less expensive than having them get burnt out and leave you and you having to rehire someone. So I know that sometimes the budgets are hard, but do what you can as an organization to preserve the staff that you have to really take care of them. They're really just such a precious asset to the organization. And then I talked a lot about mindfulness. Can you as an organization make mindful meditations available to your staff? And a lot of people, it doesn't have to be bringing, somebody in live. It can be just accessing recordings. And again, we've offered a handful of recordings to you through this conference. So I hope you'll make use of those. And then see what your leaders feel like they need, specific leadership development and support, especially to address what's going on during this difficult time. And then I just want to remind organizations, at the HR level, working with, usually things are siloed out, but how can you come together with the support of the senior team to really listen and understand what are the organizational drivers of engagement and burnout that are not working in our favor right now and causing, added stress that it's in our circle of control. We can fix this and it can be a quick win. And so I just quickly wanted to remind you of those kind of broad categories. You can look at workload and job demands. And I just spoke to, can you bring in temporary or agency help just to alleviate the pressure on your staff that's so precious that you want to preserve and keep with you? Are there, some inefficiencies or lack of resources that could be easily addressed to make the workday better and to create a win? Adding meaning and purpose to work is something we can all begin doing. Get anchored in your organization's values and challenge yourself to bring those values to life minute by minute in your culture and in your workday. Be clear about your culture and your values. Understand how you can leverage that to support your staff. Think about autonomy, control, and flexibility. Are there regulations or policies in place right now that don't need to be there, that are limiting your frontline staff's ability to to have a little autonomy and to get their job done. And can you free them of that? That's powerful. Look at social support and sense of community at work. We talked about some different ways to build that. And then that work-life integration. I'm sure everyone's got an employee assistance program. Make sure all those resources that you already have available are front and center for staff, and understand what their needs are during this really difficult time in being able to balance those at-home personal responsibilities and these work responsibilities, and get creative as to how you can make that work-life integration really workable for your teams. All right. Thank you guys so much. Again, I'm Beth Guyton. I would love it if you connected with me on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions about any of this information presented today. I hope you've enjoyed this series, talking about burnout resiliency and some strategies to move forward. You can reach me at my email, beth@interactivequality.net. And again, this presentation was brought to you by Readiness Associates. If you have any question about how they can help you through the pandemic with emergency preparedness and just compliance to a lot of the regulations tied to the pandemic, please reach out to Michael Boardman at michael.boardman@readinessassociates.com. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time today.